So the advice I'd give to a lot of clients getting started is really just get a ballpark image of where you stand.
Thanks, Lloyd, for coming in today and having a chat with me. Really keen to learn a little more about what got you into the role you're in today at Schneider Electric, and a little more about how you're helping clients with their supply chain decarbonisation.
Thank you for the invitation and happy to be here.
Could you share a little more about how you actually got into this space and the role you're in today?
Yeah, so I'm a mechanical engineer by trade as my background. So I actually started off in the mining sector and in process engineering and design engineering. Funny enough, actually working at the coalface, that gave me an exposure of what it was actually working in these, difficult and challenging environments. And from there, I wanted to do the pivot switch to move into the building sector, and that's where I moved into sustainable design and energy efficiency. So that's when I actually relocated to the UK. So once I got my hands dirty, I actually got the sense that sustainability was the area that I really wanted to work in. I pursued a master's in sustainability leadership there. From that really gave me some real challenging concepts to look at sustainability behaviour change, even looking at macroeconomic modelling for carbon emissions. And then from then, once I returned back to Australia, I actually worked in an in-house sustainability strategy role for a large integrated energy company. And that really gave me a sense of what corporate sort of energy standards and business strategy was in terms of the upcoming climate challenges that we're seeing at the moment. And that's where I've landed in this role at Schneider Electric as a sustainability consultant, and really got a real diverse range of clients working with these different areas in sustainability strategy.
So you've been at Schneider for a couple of years now. In that time, we've seen a massive change in drivers for client need to get on top of their sustainability strategy. A couple of years ago, it felt like a lot of it was quite voluntary, and either voluntary or clients were doing it because they had investors that were trying to de-risk. Now, of course, with the legislation passing through the Australian Senate and it's set in stone, companies now have to report the first group from 1st of Jan 2025. There's a lot more companies that are going to have to take this seriously. How have you seen the conversations shift over that time since you joined?
Yeah, it has definitely shifted in the last couple of years, as you just mentioned, that it's come from a voluntary nice to have to really, this is what we have to do as a BAU. And really now it's about changing the solution to what is the business case, how do we get ahead of our competition and peers, and actually turn this into harnessing the opportunities to actually build business strategy together by using the legislation as the framework to build it, but actually turn that into an actual opportunity and actually grow the business even further while also solving a few other global challenges together. So the framework or the discussion has really changed from a nice to have to really, okay, this is in order to be compliant, but let's actually incorporate it into our strategy to really leverage the opportunities there that are available on the table.
So you're working with multiple clients week on week that all have different needs, and ultimately you're the expert, right? You need to go to them with the answers that they're looking for. How do you make sure that you're always staying one step ahead of regulation and news around the world that's going to affect them?
So most recently, probably in the last 5 years, I actually listen to a lot of podcasts ranging from business, technology, industry, climate related. I find that as a way as passive learning, because I find in the very time-sensitive working world at the moment, trying to keep on top of all the latest trends and information with legislation is actually quite overwhelming sometimes. So actually I find listening into podcasts is a good way to just keep abreast on what's the latest trends are. Apart from that, I still keep in touch with my networks when I was working in the UK and across Australia.
Now, Avani and Schneider, we've been partnered for a few years now, and you've been using Avani's software in quite a few of your client engagements. How's it helped you day to day?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just recently, I actually helped a colleague where we're in the very early phases of recommending the recommended emission factor database. And when you're comparing a multitude of open source databases, how do you start? Some of the databases can range from a few hundred to a few thousand emission factors, and how do you map that across their raw data set? So I actually did a new exercise using the Avani tool and actually used a new capability to do actually the initial emission factor database matching, and through that I compared two open source databases And from that, I could find one database had over 100 matches, but when I compared it with another more granular database, had over 1,000 emission factor matches. So from that actually gave me the evidence to inform my colleague, who therefore informed their client that this database was the most appropriate based on the granularity of matched emission factors. So that was really a tool that really saved hours of work, which is sometimes a very manual process, matching it line by line in the spreadsheet.
Getting to an outcome at that speed is super important. I think that goes back to a point which I was thinking about before, which is you're going to have a lot of clients that are going to be afraid of taking that first leap because they're afraid of doing it wrong.
So the advice I'd give to a lot of clients getting started is really just get a ballpark image of where you stand. So what we usually advise is do a Scope 3 screen. Usually that can start with a spend-based calculation methodology. This really gives you a materiality check on what your material Scope 3 emissions are. From that, you go through that data evolution and you refine it and you develop a more accurate picture, because you don't want to get stuck on, how we're going to look for the perfect solution. Really, you just need to get started. As you evolve the solution, then you get more granular information and you can be more accurate in your calculations from there.
I think we've seen that time and time again with a bunch of the projects that we've worked on together.
Yeah, and I find a lot of the challenge is getting a quick answer just to inform some initial decision making. Yeah.
Exactly, you're starting from something rather than absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
Thanks for sitting down with me, Lloyd, and for taking the time to share your insights and your expertise. I've really enjoyed it.
No, thanks a lot, and thanks for the invitation.